Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm afraid to say, you guys always know that I say you're the best audience ever, but I actually have a media celebrity, one of the most authentic media celebrities that has her own show. So I'm going to say it secretly and quietly for those of you that are listening and not watching. For the best audience ever, but we have somebody that's come on to the show today that also has great audience. And that is Christine Blanchette. And if this is the first time that you've landed on the Mission Accepted podcast, I want to welcome you. Obviously, you're going to subscribe and you're going to do an incredible review after today's show because you're going to fall in love with us because we're falling in love with you. Now, here's the deal. Why is it called Mission Accepted? I get asked that a lot because it could mean a lot of different things. Like, what's the mission? Is this about military? Is this about Christianity? I was like, oh, it's been so interesting, the conversations that I've had, but here's truly what it's about. Look, it's a show where entrepreneurs and ultrapreneurs, which definitely Christine is, and I'll explain what that is, creatives and media get to come onto the show and share their stories, their insights, their message, and why they took on the mission. Because not everybody woke up one day and went, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. And I am full of bravery. And I'm just going to jump off that cliff. And no matter what comes at me, I'm going to keep going. But truly, that's what happens if you decide to take on the mission of being an entrepreneur. And the beautiful thing is, once you say yes once, it is a continuum of saying yes, and your life can get extremely creative. And now you have to navigate that. Even if it's a side gig off the side of your desk, you are navigating something that is really self-disciplined. And so it has been just an incredible journey to be able to have people come on to the show. Super excited to have Christine on today. I'm not going to tell you your story, but I met this woman. I just happened, you know what? Media. We're both in media. I happened to see her in a book that we both were in. And I was like, this woman's into running. And you guys know by now that I'm doing this walk across Ireland. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And I started to read what she had done and accomplished. And I'm like, I don't know, she's looking pretty good for someone who has accomplished so much. And so we reached out and had a conversation, and I just had to bring her onto the show. She has her own shows that she's going to share with you. But really, what a journey. And I love when things connect. I love when things line up. So I'm going to encourage you. The message that I'm going to give for you today to continue on with your mission, whether you're in this world of entrepreneurship or not, is don't be afraid to ask. Because, even myself, who's had many years behind the camera or on the stage or what have you, there's a little tiny little voice that goes, oh, if I reach out to them, they might reject me. Now, it's gotten smaller and smaller over the years, but sometimes we're afraid to just ask someone for a conversation. And I got to tell you, that has just been the best part of these last couple of years. So further ado, I'm going to bring Christine on. And Christine, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to be here. And, we match. We have the orange going. And
Absolutely. So look, you've had a really interesting career. One that people would, they're like, oh, it's so exciting, right? I mean, people think being in the spotlight is exciting. And I know that it is for you, and you get to meet the most incredible people. But what was your pivotal moment? What was that time where, were you ever in corporate? Did you work at a restaurant? Like, how did you get into getting into the world of being able to be in media?
Well, it started when I first moved to Vancouver. I'm from Quebec, and I moved in 1989. And so basically, I've always wanted to be in the media. I've always was into poetry and writing. And you know what? I had someone say to me, I'll never make it as a writer. I'll never make it. I grew up shy. And the thing is, I'm still shy. But when you're so passionate about what you do, it doesn't matter. It's like I'm so fueled by what I love to do, which is, hosting and writing. So it all started when I reached out to CBC TV Vancouver. And I started as a contract worker, and I worked in TV news. And the long story short, I asked a gentleman by the name of Terry Dolan. I said, I love to be in media. And I was answering the phones in TV news, which was great. And I was fueling questions to the research desk. But it was an incredible experience because it was hustling and busyness. And I loved it. Just like, driven and fueled. And I said, anyway, I asked Terry, I said, how do I get into hosting or, honing my craft or, so I went to BCIT. My keeping from Rogers, I presented myself, and then I was hosting a show called West Side Profile, which was a half hour, live tape show. And I was nervous. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? But again, I was shy and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do that. And also that person who said, oh, you'll never make it as a writer, you'll never make it, because I am, an introvert. But I kept going and I interviewed John Shorthouse, not to name John, Gloria Makarenko, and the list goes on. But from that experience, because I reached out, and you were talking about that in your intro, reaching out and asking, and that's how it all started. And that path went from the corporate world to law firm, forensic accounting, white collar crime. And then I was doing like media, dealing with the media from the Vancouver Sun. I thought, I want to go back to the media. And then long story, and then I went into print media, and then I went back to TV when I got laid off for post media. And I think it was a blessing in disguise because I was typing, working on an article, trying to figure out a lead. And I thought, what am I going to do? I got laid off. I know, I'm going to create a show. And I thought, how am I going to create a show? I know, I'll reach out to Doug Lucas, who I met through Rogers TV. And he said, send me a proposal. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. And it all from running, because my passion running has been my thread. It's like, if I didn't run, I wouldn't have the show. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be doing the things that I do. But anyway, it took 2 years to get off the ground, Deborah, and it aired on Shaw. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm like, yes, but it took a lot of work behind the scenes too. It takes a good team, a team to make the show, because without the team, without the people asking, I wouldn't be here and, talking to you about the shows and how I came about. So that's basically in a nutshell how it all came.
What I hear from there, and I like to really highlight for people, kind of just take a breath in, is that here you were clearly, so you talk about being an introvert in a very extrovert sector, right? And it's very interesting. I get that too. People are like, oh, you're so, I'm like, kind of private. They're like, really? But interesting. So here you are working yourself through. I'm sure that required a lot of self-talk. I'm sure you had to pull your courage from somewhere. I mean, whether it's other people or other people's stories or inspiration or what have you. So having people around you, like you said, the team. But I really heard two things. I heard that from the time that you got that idea, so here was something that was your passion, running. And when you decided to do a show, you did it about something that, you would probably do for free. And they talk about that in the world of entrepreneurship. Like, if you got up today and you didn't get paid for today, would you do it anyway? And I think sometimes people pick something that they think is trend, that they think would be good. There has to be an essence or an element of it kind of almost pulls you forward. That's what I feel like. And so here you did that. But then I also heard you say, so after 2 years, now sometimes people just skip over that. I mean, I always say to people it's a long game. It could be short fun, but it's long game. Like some of those accolades that you see people, and people know, but when you're in it, when you're in that 2 years, or you're in the middle of writing the book, or you're really close to writing the book, and you're like, and there's that comparison to someone else, or it happened for them. And that whole idea around overnight success, I think overnight success is probably for a book or for a project, dances between 2 to 4 years. I know a woman who just took a film and it's hitting accolades, and she's, I mean, it's crazy what's going on. She's like, it was a 4-year project before we actually even spoke it. So I just wanted to highlight that for people, because it's the long haul, sounds to me.
Yes. And it was an incredible journey. And yes, there were hiccups or obstacles in the way. But I think when you are focused, it's like running. I try to do everything with running. It's taught me discipline. It's taught me time management. And not every day is a good day. I was saying earlier, before we went on air, that running, I owe so much to running, because it's really, as I said, discipline, time management, and believe in myself. despite the odds, and
Hmm.
despite, having a bad day, and knowing that, like, self-talk, and it's really that positive, feeling, and surrounding yourself with positive people, which is huge, having a strong team behind you, but
Hmm.
also taking constructive criticism. You want to say, how can I improve myself? How can I improve my volume when I'm on stage? How can I improve the shows? I think that puts you in the forefront, because it allows you to improve in your game or your shows or whatever you're working on, your projects.
Hmm. Absolutely. We just talked about that. I just, I just came back from a trip in Orlando where it was 4 days about media. And, it's about sharpening your axe, as Jeff Wilson says. It's about tweaking sometimes, maybe not just learning, but tweaking your skills, staying current in your industry, all of those
Mm.
good things. So it's called Run With It, which I absolutely love because as someone who that was my sport in school. I did the
Oh,
4 100 relay. I've done, I did a marathon 17 years ago, people, let's just get real. I did one 16 and 15 years ago, but that was a half. And I was doing it for charity. But I was also, I wanted to make sure I had this dream of doing this marathon. I always wanted to do a marathon before I was 40. Now, bless my son's heart, they would say in the South, bless your heart. I got pregnant with my son at 39. I
oh,
had my son at 39. Um, I tried for many years. He just took 10 years too long. And so when he arrived, and it was a very interesting experience for me. I was walking down the street. I was actually walking on Broadway, which you would know. I'm walking on Broadway, and I just had this baby. I was considerably overweight. I gained a lot of weight during that pregnancy. And I looked down, and on the ground is this dirty flyer. Now, I don't pick up dirty flyers. So I see the word Ireland. And if anyone knows anything about me, I was like, I saw Ireland and the word marathon, and I'd always wanted to do a marathon before I was 40. So I picked it up, and I was like, oh, it was this like, I'm sure they still do them, but it was this, raise money for the Arthritis Society, and you can go on this trip, and you got to raise money and do all this kind of stuff. So I looked, and the Ireland date was like a couple of months away. I'm like, well, that ain't happening because I literally just gave birth. But
mm,
there was this one to Hawaii. Now, it's not like I wouldn't want to go to Hawaii. It just was never my big aspiration. But I'm like, okay, the marathon was December 12th. I was going to turn 40 December 18th, and my son would turn 1 December 27th. And he didn't sleep, and he didn't take a bottle of soother, a cup, or a spoon. I was his source every 2 hours. I'm like, I don't know, could I do this? I brought it home, and my then husband was like, what are you doing? And so to get him over it and get him on board, I'm like, so the money goes to the Arthritis Society, and his grandmother had a very, considerable case of arthritis. I'm like, I'm going to do this for Hazel. He's like, okay. And so with very little training, because I could only show up and train with them once a week for 2 hours. Honestly, it was such a mindset. I got to mile 22 and I'm like, what am I doing? So finish the marathon. What's my story to this? My story to this is that when I think about running, when I love the title Run With It, because for me it applies in so many different ways. I just see Forrest Gump when I see Run With It. I just see Forrest Gump who like works through his whole life's challenges and troubles and whatever till he gets to a place of, it seems, and peace and joy, right? So that's a long entry into what does Run With It mean and what do you do on that show?
Run with it is, when someone says, well, run with it, is like a free spirit, like, but it's how you feel about it. And um, so the show is running, but it's also about, I interview Olympians, I have registered dietitians on the show, celebrities who are getting ready to be ready for the role, like, a stunt coordinator, stunt actor. And I have doctors' corners, so doctors talk about intervention, eye vision, everything that surrounds about leading a healthy lifestyle. So with that in mind, like, it's for, like, people who run the sun run. How do they prepare for the sun run? So I take that kind of a context, and because it can apply. You have everyone running the sun run, like, all levels of ability. So the show's all for everyone. But if you can get something from it, it's like cooking. I have a cooking demo on the show. Then I have culinary medicine, which is really cool. Uh, just everything, Deborah, like,
Mm.
learning to run, and dentists for oral health. Like, the list goes on. I could do, running with your dog. Just, everything that I can offer. The experts, I'm the messenger, and the experts come on the show and talk about, their experience and share with the viewers and listeners.
So the reason why I call you an entrepreneur is because you don't just do one show. You don't just do one thing. So, obviously you're an author, you're a writer, you're very active, you have this show, and then you have something incredible. I love the name of this show as well. It's called The Closing Act. So share with us what that is, because that could be so many different things. So what's The Closing Act?
Well, The Closing Act is a music show, but also entertainment, because I have actors come on the show. I have filmmakers, there's independent filmmakers, there's A-listers, actors, musicians from, who have a band in Vancouver and they want help. So I'll help them, have them on the show. Then you have musicians been around for a while, seasoned musicians. I'm trying to think of who I've had on the show, because there's so many, like it's a whirlwind of guests on the show. Like I'll have like Dan Hale, a runner too, and I've had him on both shows. So sometimes he'll come on The Closing Act, and then you'll come on Run With It. So it's kind of cool to have, him on the show, twice, talking about this and talking about that. So yeah, so it's a half-hour show. Actually, it's 23 minutes for each show, but then it goes on YouTube, and then it goes on podcasts, and then it goes on the radio. So yes, it's like I feel like an octopus because it goes all everywhere. Like it's just yeah. So that an artist, who it's all about helping people and inspiring others to continue on with their dream and continue on and and as I said, there's a platform here. So yeah, so that's what happened. So the Run With It came first, The Closing Act came second. So yeah, so I love it.
And that happens, right? I mean, I've even noticed in terms of, the people that I interview as well, it's not difficult to think like, okay, there's another sector that I really love to play in, and then to create a show. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do what you do. So hats off to you, because I understand. And I've thought many times of doing a second show, and I'm like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work what you do. And it's a lot of gifting, right? It's a lot of helping other people inspire and get their word out about what they do. And that's fantastic. So for you, being in media since what, 1990s?
Yes.
That's incredible. Has there been a story or someone that has inspired you, or something interesting that you've experienced that you like? I always call it, have you ever had any of those surprises?
Yes, well, it's thank you for asking me this, because when I was at CBC, Karen Tanker, who's a veteran radio producer, and she's actually teaching at BCIT. So what happened was, and I'm going to make this story as short as possible. So I was in the TV news desk, and I saw her come in, and I thought, wow, I approached her, and it's like all about asking. And so she was working on a story, Kelly Lake is called, on about, about the everything was not clean, like the water, and I'm just saying in general. So I asked her, can I help? Well, you can do some research. And I thought, wow, I can do some research for what she's working on in Kelly Lake. So it was, greenhorn, and I thought, okay. So I presented her with, the research, and she seemed to be okay, because we met after, for coffee, and we talked. And she's always, and then she wrote about me, about my running. So she's been a total inspiration, a mentor. She's, and we connect from time to time, which is great. And she congratulated me for, coming on board at BCIT. And then the second one's with Bethany, international recording artist. So I approached her manager. It's all about asking. So I thought, you know what, I'll just ask. So her manager told Biff about me. So Biff emailed me one day, and I'm just paraphrasing. Oh, I heard that you would like to do an interview with me. And I said, yeah. So anyway, the email, and now we're friends. She called me a friend. So anyway, it's just these opportunities have been so magical. And so I want to pay it forward. So if someone comes to me, I want to help too. So Karen Tanker, Dan Hill actually gave me opportunity to interview. Uh, there's Fifth Naked and many more, like Eric Albert.
Oh, we seem to have a little bit of technical. I know that Christine has, well, wait, I'm sure she'll pop back on soon. But I know in having great conversation with Christine that she has had the opportunity to really interview a lot of different people. Oh, here she is. We bleeped out a little bit, so I was just filling in for our audience how inspired you are to inspire, and the many different people that you've had on the show. So.
Yes. Yeah, so it's been a journey, a great, incredible ride.
What would you suggest to people? So you've been in media you've been in media since the 1990s. I don't know if you've ever had any opportunity to go out of the sector and do other things. Has there ever been times where you're like, I'm not sure that this is the way to go, or something didn't work out and you're like, I'm not sure this is filling my financial bucket, my emotional bucket, my dream bucket in the way that I thought? Is there anything for people? Because there's a lot of people, Christine, and you know it, that are hopping kind of into the media thing. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're going to have a podcast, keep in mind 90% of people don't make it to their 100th show because, media is sexy here, but media sexy behind the scenes. There's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy. It really needs to be a passion, and you really need to think about what is it that it does, and does it serve your ultimate goal? Like, is this charity that you're doing? Because if it's volunteer work, you're okay. To monetize takes time, all that. So do you have any advice for people that are playing with the idea around media?
I think find a mentor. I think it's really important. And don't be afraid to reach out to people, because people love to help, generally speaking. Have, a clear idea. If it wasn't for Doug Lucas, saying, sending a media proposal, and also finding your passion, wherever that passion is, I think it starts there. Like, what is it? Are you passionate about gardening, cooking? And it takes steps, like it takes patience. It really does. It's not going to happen overnight, as you said. It's like, but also, you know, take the steps and believe in yourself, which I want to add, believe in the dream, but also be realistic, and also listen. This is so important. I've been trying to do this always. Listen to your gut, your inner voice, your gut. Just because I get sometimes emails, I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I would think about it, and then I think, no, there's something I don't feel comfortable, even though it looks great. Something tells me no. So having that inner, your gut tells you, I think, generally speaking. But also think, like I'm very blessed. Like, I do things pro bono. I get sponsorships, I get partnerships, or what have you. But I also think that if you're going to do that, you really need to go above and beyond, because they're believing in the project, not so much the numbers sometimes, because the numbers are great, but also believing in you and your projects, whatever you're working on. But I also think, again, back to the mentor, find that mentor who's going to help you, which is, I would say it was, Doug Lucas, because I wouldn't have the show without his support from the very, very beginning. So, and it's people like yourself, you've done incredible, writing, and do not listen when someone says you can't do something, you'll never make it as a writer. You have to dig deep. My running coach told me this: dig deep when you're so tired, when you cut that, and you're almost at the end of the marathon, 10K or 5. Dig deep, and you'll make it. It takes all that energy and focus. And you know what? That friend who's listening or watching, now that person believes in it, because it all starts from believing in you, that passion. You'll never make it as a singer, It's like you hear those stories, and yeah, I hope I answered your question. And
Yeah, no, absolutely did, because sometimes people don't understand. You talked about something very important about digging deep and digging, surpassing, and sometimes opportunities come by and they look really good, and you're like this. For me, it's like I'm like this, and I heard a really good phrase once: says, if it's not a yes, it's a no. So if you're like, it's like this, or it's just a no right now. The other thing is just if it, I know the tingles, the tingles, like when it feels
Yeah.
like, and you get excited and you almost can't sleep. That's a surety. I get asked this a lot, and you brought it up a little bit. Maybe we can expand on that a bit, because people are like, Deb, you do a podcast or you write a book or you've got a show, and how does it get monetized? How do you sustain yourself? Like, you spend a lot of time doing this, and you talked about partnerships and sponsorships. And I think people go, they don't know. They're like, how big do I need to get my show before a sponsor is going to approach me? Or did you approach sponsors? Or how do you work partnerships? Is it you align with another show? Like, maybe explain a little bit just from the business side of media. So people, because that's a big thing. They're like, I want to go in, but is it the starving artist kind of story,
Yes. Yes. I think too is that once you have established yourself, like 2 years generally, then you can reach out to potential partnerships, sponsorships. And you know what? If you align with the right brand, you don't just don't want to go to anyone because they'll think, oh, she just wants money. She just
Mm-hmm.
wants, align myself generally. So it's really doing your research on the product or the company and figuring out what's their mission statement. Does it align with having that call? And it's all about building relationships. It really is, and that trust and that, longevity. Because it's all about having that first sponsor, which I had. Now it's about coming back and you giving beyond, above and beyond, I should say. But it's like making sure you don't approach someone that is, it's like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, or he doesn't know what she's talking about. They don't, because they don't know the mission statement, they don't know the numbers, they don't know who they're aligning with on Instagram or social media. That's very vital, to figure it all out. It's your job, because sometimes people don't think, they don't have the time to think.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think, okay, we could do this, we could do like a cooking demo, for example. And they go, oh, okay, take stuff from your fridge that's leftovers and we could put it on the show. I'm just speaking, top of my
Yeah.
head, but having that, giving them a reason to be on the show and making it as easy as possible because they don't have time generally, and I think that's worked for me. It may not work for others, but I think generally going back is like if you have numbers like even before 2 years, then by all means, go for it. But yeah, finding out who is your audience, your target market. And when I said that, all ages, I have a lot, generally right now, it keeps changing, but I have a lot of women who watch the show and the podcast. And I think it's a lifestyle show, like, it's all
Mm-hmm.
abilities, for running and everything else. So information, education. So yeah, I hope that helps for people who are
No,
watching
it
this.
all helps because people are piecing things together, and I think media has become a part of our lives in a way that it never
Mhm.
was. And
Yeah.
my girlfriend just launched a women's TV streaming network. That was not a
Excellent.
conversation 4 years ago. It just wasn't a conversation. She's like, "Hey, I've just started a TV network. Do you want to have a show?" I mean, we didn't. This is not where we came from. We came from people that were on TV, were absolutely TV stars, and there was almost a I wonder how they got there kind of thing. Now we are very much in the world of mass media, whether it's social media. Sometimes people don't think about Facebook as media, but it is all sorts of different forms of media that come up. Print is on a rise, like we publish books over here, and the rise of desire of authorship is incredible, and people are using it now. They're braving up and putting their story or contributing to a story or doing an anthology or doing something alignment. I mean, that's what me and you have done. And so there's this whole new thing. And with that comes questions and wondering and wonderment, So I so appreciate. I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time together today, and I know we get to see each other again very soon.
Yes.
Um, I'd love for you to share with people how to reach you, what, if they want to be a guest on your show, what does that look like? Do you have any projects coming up that you want to share? So maybe do that. And then I have one really kind of cool question for you.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I really enjoy being on this show. It's like giving me an opportunity to talk about the shows and what you do as well. I mean, I, people want to come on the show, they can reach out to my website, which is runwithit.ca. So I have both shows on there. And so I'm always working on projects. Like I'm working on something I can't really talk about right now, but I do have um, I guess, but I can't release it because it's not on air. But I
Okay,
did
no.
talk.
Oh,
I
we'll,
did
we'll,
talk.
we'll have you back for that.
But yeah, so stay tuned, in other words. But if people want to be a guest or they want to find out more information, is Run With It, social media, right? Like I feel everyone's on social media, Instagram, so
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter. So just, Christine Blanchette _TV, but they'll find me. Just Google my name, please. And yeah.
Well, I think I would, if I heard what you were just saying, I would be all over your social media because I want to know what you just NDA'd on, but you can't disclose. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Maybe I can, maybe when I come on your show, I'm going to like, tell me. Anyways, I totally get it. So here's a question for you. And I think it's interesting because you, like me, I interview a lot of musicians, and obviously my life has been absorbed with music and will be even more so because of the fundraise that we're doing in the next 15 months here. So you're on your way to a desert island. You've had the life of your dreams, and you're like, you know what, check it out a little bit. And you're going to this desert island and you're not coming back. And you have room in your suitcase for one album. One album. What is the album that you're going to take? It's the album that you couldn't ever imagine not listening to ever again. What's that going to be?
Oh, that's a very good question. You too. You too. And it's about, I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
Awesome. I love those guys. I love those guys.
That,
That
yeah,
that's amazing. Well, have you been to Ireland?
I would love, because I'm Irish, like you.
I know. You got the hair to prove it. Okay, so when
I
you go to
love,
Ireland, and I'll be there next August doing this run, I think you should be there and you should be filming something about this called Run With It. So we need to have a talk. But when you go to Ireland, and you will go, you can actually go to the top of the building. If you ever seen the video of when U2 singing a song, and why it's eluding me right now, but the police come on and take them off the rooftop.
mm-hmm.
Well, you get to go to the rooftop and see where U2 sang their song in their early days and got hauled off. And so that's definitely a spot for you to do when you arrive in the country.
Oh my goodness. No, I'll be there. This has been such a magical interview, and I want to thank you and the team, Dorothea, and it's just been such a wonderful experience.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I'm going to thank again the incredible audience and the incredible dedicated subscribers to the show. Thank you so much. It really helps get the word out for all of the podcast guests. So please do share, contact. If you'd like to be on the show, you've got a couple of shows now that you can offer. You can contact us, and you guys know that already. So go get onto her show, and then we'll see you on the back end of it. And we have been talking a lot about this walk across Ireland. If you haven't gone on to theydidittour.ca to see the craziness of what's going on, we're going to be walking over 8.5 miles across Ireland to raise money for the music industry, supporting She Is the Music, which is Alicia Keys' organization. So if you are in the music industry and you are a woman and you need support, either financially or mentoring, just go on to their website, or you can go on to theydidit.ca. You're going to see their link. Listen, see what they're all about. They're super people, and they're there to support. And I just look forward to seeing you guys again next week. So thank you for being the best audience ever. And bye for now.